With the 49ers 69-man roster, with the 53 on the actual team and then the 16 on the practice squad, now kind of being official in a way, or all the moves and corresponding moves have been made, I'm going to be giving you my prediction for the depth chart for the 49ers on the 53-man roster, and I'll also include along the way who might be inactive for week one, because as we know, only 48 of the 53, well, I think it's expanded to 55 for game day rosters, are going to be active. But let's get into the video. Before I start, be sure to hit up my Twitter, be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you guys so much for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. But let's get to it. So, starting off at the quarterback position, right now, there are two quarterbacks on the 49er roster for the 53-man roster. That is Jimmy Garoppolo, and that is Trey Lance. Now, if you guys don't know, Trey Lance injured his index finger while being hit in the helmet by a Raider defensive lineman on a throw in the third preseason game, and the finger actually fractured. I know they call it a chipped finger. I think it is a fracture, and that's why I don't know if Trey Lance is going to be ready for game one, despite being on the game day roster. So, looking at the roster right now, I think the 49ers could call up Sudfeld in the case that Garoppolo is injured in game one because Lance might not be ready health wise. If he's ready, they could just carry two, but I think they might use up one of those two extra spots on the roster that they have for game days and call up Sudfeld and make Trey Lance an inactive player if he isn't healthy yet. But apart from that, it's pretty straightforward. Garoppolo is going to start for the team. Lance will be the backup once he's healthy, and Sudfeld makes it on the roster someday. I'd assume they might carry him onto the 55-man a lot more just because they want that third quarterback if they're going to flip-flop quarterbacks a little more in the regular season. But that's what it is, at least for week one. Looking at the running back, fullback place, we've got six names in total, or actually five names in total in uh, Raheem Mostert, Trey Sermon, JaMychal Hasty, and then Elijah Mitchell. Those were the four they carried onto the 53-man, and then Kyle Juszczyk, who's the fullback. So we know that Kyle Juszczyk is obviously going to play, and he's the starter there at the fullback position. For the running backs, they're carrying four right now. I don't know if they actually make all four active on game day, especially if nobody's injured. But looking at it, Raheem Mostert should be the number one. You know, he got his first preseason action last week in week three. He looked phenomenal, especially on the outside runs, where he was just able to elevate to the second level of the defense and find his gaps on the outside to get big gains. I know he had a 17-yard gain. I know he had a 16-yard game on that first drive. So he seems locked in as that number one starter. And the number two spot, I think it's going to be the rookie, Trey Sermon, but they might just say, okay, let's ease him in a little more and try and figure out how they do it. But the problem is with that, Trey Sermon is just so different from the other 49er backs because they have two other backs who use their explosiveness a little more, or maybe not explosiveness, but athletic ability and speed to try and get past defenders in Elijah Mitchell and JaMychal Hasty. So he just provides something completely different in terms of element wise and can open up the game. That's why I think he'll be that second back in terms of on the depth chart. At the third back position, I think that they probably carry Elijah Mitchell onto the team. I think JaMychal Hasty either would be the fourth. Well, if he's carried onto the team, he'd be the third back. But if he's not, because Elijah Mitchell will be returning kicks, I'd assume he might not be on the active roster for week one. But they also might want to ease Mitchell into the game plan because he was very shaky in his first game. He did not look good. He didn't, and it wasn't even that he looked like bad as a running back. He was just out of place on a couple of plays, and he just kind of didn't seem like he was fully aware of the 49er offense. So that's why I think they could carry four running backs for week one onto that 55 man, but I'm not, or onto the 48, like the 48 that actually play, but I'm not exactly sure. Elijah Mitchell, though, he should return kicks. Looking at the wide receiver room, there are currently six on the roster. As Shanahan and Lynch both said, okay, we're only carrying six. That's the number one and number two in Debo and Brandon Ayuk. I'd assume Debo Samuel would get the number one. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter because you have the outline anyway. But I put Debo Samuel, Ayuk. Then the slot receiver to start week one should probably be Mohamed Sanu. Then you've got the two other big slots in Jawan Jennings and also in Jalen Hurd. And then the other guy is the sensation from training camp, Trent Sherfield. So looking at the depth chart wise, you'd probably have Debo at one. You'd have Brandon Ayuk at two, Mohamed Sanu at three. Trent Sherfield would take the four. Jawan Jennings would take the five. And I doubt Jalen Hurd plays because he's also been a little banged up and he's also like not in that first week, he didn't look like he was NFL ready yet in terms of getting up to game speed and everything. So I would not consider Jalen Hurd maybe to play on that 48 man roster that they have on game days. If they choose not to play Elijah Mitchell in week one, look for Travis Benjamin to make the team on that 55 man roster as that one of those extra players and actually be on that 48 man roster as he can be one of those deep threats and also return kicks. But you should see a lot of those top four, Mohamed Sanu, Trent Sherfield, and then obviously Debo and Brandon Ayuk. And a lot of these jet sweeps, you know how the 49ers run their offense. I think Trent Sherfield might not see as much action just because he's not always involved in these jet sweeps, but they could try and get creative. But as for now, that's how I see the depth chart as with the six receivers. An interesting aspect, I think, is that they have three of these big slot receivers in Mohamed Sanu, Jawan Jennings, and Jalen Hurd. So it'll be interesting if they try and play one of those three guys at another position, or if they try and bring up Travis Benjamin in case of depth concerns. But yeah, that's the depth chart for the wide receivers, in my opinion, and we'll see how they do and what they roll out on the 53 man roster. Along the offensive line, the 49ers are actually now carrying 9 players because they brought back Jake Brendel, who was originally signed to the practice squad and then brought back to the 53 man roster when they put Maurice Hurst on IR, who was obviously the defensive tackle. But right now, they have Trent Williams at left tackle. They've got Laken Tomlinson at left guard, Alex Mack at center, Daniel Brunskill at right guard, and Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. I think the most important thing, kind of what we're seeing, is that Aaron Banks is not going to get the week one job as many people wanted because they drafted him obviously in the second round. But Banks has been injured. He returned to practice this week, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was one of the inactives because I think the team trusts Jake Brendel to actually have somewhat of that flexibility in moving to guard as well. They also have Tom Compton, who surprisingly made the team over Colton McKivitz, who's on the practice squad. So Tom Compton also could play guard. And Jalen Moore has guard experience, although he has been playing primarily at tackle, should anyone get hurt. But I think they carry 8 of these guys onto the 48 man. I think that Aaron Banks would probably be the guy out. It'd be interesting if it'd be Tom Cotton instead. But I think Aaron Banks, because of his acclimation in the NFL, hasn't gone as well as people planned, and he's also battled injuries so far. I don't know if he makes the 53 the 48 man roster on game days. So looking at it, you have those 5 starters. Then Jalen Moore at the backup left tackle position because that's what he's been playing at camp. You've also got Tom Cotton, who is, I think, the left guard. You could also put him as the right guard if Aaron Banks is not active for game days. And then obviously Jake Brendel's main position is center behind Alex Mack. Now for the defensive line, I'm going to give you guys 2 different projections. One that I hope happens as the season progresses, and one for week one. Starting off for the week one, what I hope happens is that they place 2 defensive ends in Nick Bosa and Ebukam because I don't think D Ford is going to get as much time as he should in week one. And also when he played with the 49ers in 2019, he only started 2 games out of the, I think, 11 that he played. So Ebukam is probably the week one starter there, especially in pass rushing situations. Maybe in run defending situations, they slide out Armstead to tackle and they bring in Kinlaw and DJ Jones. But especially in pass rushing situations, you'd probably have Bosa and Ebukam on the ends, and then Arik Armstead and DJ Jones or Javon Kinlaw. Depends on who you feel more comfortable with in that one tech position at the nose tackle. I think DJ Jones has actually been like that kind of stable guy at the one tech position, at the nose tackle position for the last couple of seasons. So they might roll with him, given that they've been a little hesitant to give Javon Kinlaw reps in pass situations. So I'd say in run situations, Kinlaw's in there alongside DJ Jones. In pass situations, Kinlaw might not be there maybe at the beginning of the season. But what you want to see as the season progresses is a lineup of D Ford and Nick Bosa on the ends, and then Ark Armstead and Javon Kinlaw on the insides in pass rushing situations. Let's see if all those players can get back to health, and also if Kinlaw can develop into that. But looking at the depth, this is where it is the most important for the 49ers, and also where some of the inactives probably will happen, just because there are 10 players right now on the roster that are actually on this team. And what I mean on this team, well, we had 11 immediately or at the beginning, but Maurice Hurst obviously was put on IR, so now there's 10. But there are a lot of players. I think Kentavious Street might not be active for Week 1. I don't know about Kevin Givens either, and I think that they could carry 8 instead, with 2 backup defensive tackles and 2 backup edges. Looking at the backups for Week 1, you have Arden Key and you have either Ebukam or Ford, whoever's placed there. I think Week 1 is probably Ford just because he's limited reps. So they could also carry another defensive end. I know Zach Kerr sometimes plays end. I know sometimes he slides in. So that could be a possibility. And then also, apart from Zach Kerr, you have whoever it is between Kinlaw and DJ Jones. So those are the 8 names you should probably see on game day. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward there in terms of Week 1. When we progress into the season, let's see how it changes a little more. At the linebacker position, the 49ers chose to carry only 5, so it's a little straightforward here as well. Obviously, at middle linebacker, you have Fred Warner. At the weak side linebacker, you're going to have Dre Greenlaw, and then the sub linebacker is Aziz Al Shair. The other 2 linebackers that the 49ers are carrying is specialist Demetrius Flanagan-Fouts, and then the other guy is Marcel Harris, who's obviously the safety converted linebacker. I don't think they bring anybody else on this roster onto the game day roster. I think that they stick with these 5, and I know they've been giving reps to players like Elijah Sullivan, or not Elijah Sullivan, but the 2 players they were giving reps to at middle linebacker are actually not on the team anymore, in preseason at least. And that was Justin Hilliard, who they tried to sneak onto the practice squad, and also Dakota, or not Dakota Shepley, but the guy who they traded in Jonas Griffith, who is given to Denver, I believe, for a 6th-round pick with some nice compensation there. But looking at it, these are the 5. I don't think it changes on game day, and I think that the positioning there is pretty simple. Demetrius Flanagan-Fouts, I'd assume, probably comes in run situations, while Marcel Harris would come in pass situations, given his experience as a safety. Looking at cornerback, the 49ers brought 6 players onto their 53-man roster originally. That was Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Mosley, K'Waun Williams, Ambry Thomas, Diamador Lenore, and Devontae Harris. Devontae Harris was immediately put on IR, which meant that they re-signed Dante Johnson to the practice squad and then brought him back after cutting him. So he is now their 6th corner. But looking at it, the 3 starters, this is like a little bit of one of their depth issues here, or maybe not depth, but like the talent kind of falls off after those first 3. But looking at the starters, you have Jason Verrett at outside corner, who's only played in more than 6 games twice in his 6-year career, which is a bit of a problem. So there's depth concerns here, and there's like kind of like a talent fall off after the starters. The outside guy is Emmanuel Mosley, who's now in his 1st year as a starter, but he's played well, especially in that bridge role with Akella Witherspoon, who left in the offseason. And then the nickel corner is K'Waun Williams. And K'Waun Williams, he's been one of those stable players in his 49er career. He's been around, but he also has found a home in San Francisco. He signed a 1-year deal in the offseason, and he's been one of the better nickel corners. Backing up K'Waun Williams, I have Diamador Lenore, who I think the team drafted to be a nickel cornerback. And I know he played there a little in preseason. I know they've also experimented with him at outside corner because they thought that he could play the outside, but I think he's best suited at the nickel corner position, and he probably gets the role next year as a starter because K'Waun Williams will demand a higher salary. But the other guys are Ambry Thomas and also Dante Johnson. Dante Johnson has just been on this team a lot. He's been cut by this team a lot and brought back, but I think he serves as that outside role, and I think Ambry Thomas serves as one of the outside guys as well. But I think with Diamador Lenore's flexibility to play on the outside as well, I think Ambry Thomas, who really hasn't shown much so far, he's yet to kind of adapt to the NFL, I'd say, in a way. I think he's going to be one of the inactives, and I think they carry 5 cornerbacks on the team, and Diamador Lenore, who is the backup nickel, has the flexibility to go outside should he need to. But Dante Johnson is also there, so that's one of the groups. But I think depth concern is certainly something with this group. Looking at the safety group, the 49ers chose to carry four safeties. They carried Jaquiski Tart, they carried Talanoa Hufanga, Tavon Wilson, and Jimmy Ward. They cut HaHa Clinton Dix as one of their players, trying to bring him back to the practice squad, but I don't think he's returning. But those four are probably all going to be there on game day. And this four is one of the more talented groups, despite being, only four players for the 49ers, because I think that Jaquiski Tart and Jimmy Ward are both a little underrated in that secondary. They haven't been getting as much praise as they've because like players like Richard Sherman have been there, and then Verrett last year was phenomenal in his cornerback position. But Jimmy Ward's been one of the team captains, and he's been one of the team leaders in a way. And Kwaski Tart, the 49ers value him that much. When you see like in the offseason, it was a little uncertain if Kwaski was going to be available week one because of the injury that he faced. He was on reserve COVID list, and then after that, he was placed. I think I forget what he was placed on, but he was placed on another injury list, and so he was out for a while. And then that allowed kind of Tavon Wilson and Talanoa Hufanga to try and get some of those basically try and get like some of those reps. Wilson rolled with the ones. Hufanga was the second tier or second string guy, but he also started in preseason games because Wilson was out for the last preseason game. So there was like a little bit of a competition, but it shows because right as Kwaski comes back, he's put right into that starting role. So Jaquiski Tart, he's a valuable member to this team. If he's healthy, he's a good player, but the problem has always been health. So looking at it, Jimmy Ward is going to be the free safety. He's obviously the better player in coverage. He can also line up against, bigger players as well and be a little more physical. Jaquiski Tart is a strong safety. The backup strong safety is Talanoa Hufanga, which the 49ers drafted him to be. And then Tavon Wilson has strong safety flexibility, but he's also a good player in coverage, which is why, you've seen it with George Kittle. So, which is why I think Tavon Wilson is going to take the backup free safety role this year, but also has flexibility. In the last position group, we always got to show the special teams group some love. There are only three players: long snapper Tabor Pepper, kicker Robbie Gold, not Richie, and then Mitch Twiskowski, the best punter in the world, obviously, who's there at the punting position. So that's the 53 man, and that is my projections for the depth chart. I'll be updating this obviously as the season goes. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe and be on the lookout. I think I have a double upload coming today with the second version of what I published just a few days ago in the 5 roadblocks. I'm going to be giving you the 5 reasons why the 49ers are making the Super Bowl. But have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.